Welcome to the first video in using AutoCAD, and the first thing that you'll want to do is actually go get AutoCAD. You can follow the links that are on Canvas. This is the Pages section of Canvas. There are some links. The Autodesk Student Community website is where you'll find AutoCAD, Revit, and some other good stuff. This is the Windows version. The one right here below will show you the link to the Mac version. And if you go over here, this is the Windows website. You will have to sign in, which means you should log in, come up with some username. And like most things, don't forget to put that username somewhere where you'll remember it. Log in, and then once you do that, the Windows side will detect what type of machine you have, and it should figure out that you want the latest version. Anyway, when you go to download it, be sure to choose a school version. It actually probably doesn't really matter all that much, but this gives you the longest license. I usually choose the latest version. AutoCAD has no problem with backwards compatibility. In other words, an older version of AutoCAD can usually open a newer file format. It's not necessarily critical, but I would choose AutoCAD 2018. Most of you who are running a Windows machine will run a 64-bit machine. And of course, most of you will want it in English, although again, that's not required. So once you do that, it will give you a license serial number and a product key, which you can access whenever you log into the website. So if you happen to lose these numbers, that's not a big deal. When you first launch the software, it will ask you for these numbers, which you should put in. And you can just copy and paste them. I've already downloaded it, so it's not giving me a link to download it. Just for the heck of it, this is the other link, the AutoCAD for Mac. And once again, choose either personal, or you can choose deploy without a network server. AutoCAD for Mac only goes up to 2017. Of course, it has detected that I have a Mac system and will run it in English. And then, of course, for my machine, I actually have the latest version, so I don't know why it's giving me an option to download it. Usually it detects that it's on the machine, but you can click this and it will download it, and from there on in, you install it as per the usual Mac or PC style installations. Okay, and there's some other links on that Canvas page, which some of you may find handy, including this is one of those keyboard shortcut pages that you can download and print out. So, all right, let's take a look at the software. First of all, I'll show you just the difference here. I happen to have them both on the computer. This is the PC version, and rather quickly, this is the Mac version. So you can see they're very similar, and I'm not going to switch back and forth every single time. I'll probably just stick with the Mac side because it gets a little confusing. And it does seem like there are a few more Mac users than PC users in our department. But in the end, I'm going to teach you a method which will work fine on either system. So first of all, on the left, on the Mac version, or on the PC, it's up at top, are a whole bunch of buttons. And these buttons, if you leave your mouse over them, it will tell you what the buttons do. They are, of course, designed to look like what they are. So the line button looks suspiciously like a line. If you have really good eyesight and you can put your see that on this icon for the line, there are little blue dots at the end. Those dots are actually indicative of how you draw the tool, tool that's indicated here. So if I click on the line tool, there's two blue dots. I actually click once to start the line and once to finish it. And that's how you draw a line. And all of these operate in the same way. This is a polyline, a line that is actually several connected lines. And you can see there were several blue dots. And when I click on this, those blue dots actually come back with some other blue lines that you can see. So anyway, each of these tools, you can pretty much look at it and probably figure out what it does. Some of the tools have a little arrow on the lower right. If you click and right on that arrow, or click and drag on that arrow, you will see that there are many options for that particular tool. So we have circle, circle using a center and the radius, circle using a center and the diameter, 2 points, 3 points. There's any number of ways to draw circles. Same with rectangles. You can draw a rectangle, which is a box, or you can click and drag on this tool, or try and click and drag on there, and draw a, oh, I guess that's not working. Click and drag to draw a polygon. Same with some of these other tools. You can draw an ellipse, and there are other tools hidden underneath. There are, of course, other buttons up here which may look very familiar. There's the New Drawing button, Open, where you open an existing drawing, and Save, and then this is a Save As. And, of course, these are the critical buttons here. This Undo button is absolutely critical. Now, some parts of the drawing interface here may be a little unfamiliar. One is this panel over here. This is an information panel. And there are all sorts of different things about the drawing that you can learn. In this case right now it has what are called layers visible. And we'll learn that there are other panels available. Now down on the lower right you will see that there are a number of drawing modes. And for right now, just let it be said that some allow you to draw with or without a grid in the background. And others will force the drawing to draw only in the rectilinear directions, so the orthogonal drawing. No matter how hard I try, I can't draw a diagonal line when this particular mode is on. And I can just turn it off, and I can turn it off on demand. Anyway, the last thing that I'm going to indicate here is how do you move around the drawing? Well, critical to using AutoCAD is to have a scroll wheel. Now, I can't show you the scroll wheel on this video, but I can show you what it does. When I scroll in and out, it moves my drawing in and out. So I can zoom way in on pieces. And this is handy if you, say, want to move parts of a drawing. You can zoom in and out, and you can even do it in the middle of commands. I can also click and drag the scroll wheel and see how the hand becomes visible on my screen. That is the pan command. So scrolling in and out is the zoom command. Clicking and dragging that scroll wheel is the pan command. And there's other things that we will learn. Now, what I'd like you to do as you follow along here is to try out each of these basic drawing tools. Click on the line tool, click once to start the command, and once to stop it. Now, what you'll see as you draw, the cursor is still connected to that last point, and it is indicating another line is being drawn. That indicator is called a rubber band line. It connects the start point to wherever your cursor is. And you can keep drawing lines really until you click either another command or you hit the escape button. I just hit the escape button. Again, you can't see me doing that. But having your finger near that escape button is very common in AutoCAD because that's how you draw, how you stop your drawing commands without actually clicking another command. Anyway, each of these lines is unique and separate. They're not connected, so you can draw multiple ones. So try drawing a line. Try drawing a polyline. Again, just zigzag. And what you'll notice as you're drawing some of these commands, down at the bottom, there are actually options for this polyline. So for example, each of these options here does something different. If I type in A for arc, see how it's capitalized? That's the letter you type in. I'll type in A and enter. Now, when I draw, my polyline is drawing arcs. And to get back to drawing lines, I just type in L. See how it's capitalized there? L and enter. Now the other one I can do is if I want to make a closed form, I can type in C and close the form. Now when I click on this object, and I haven't clicked on any commands, I just clicked on the objects. You see how it's all one big object. And I can modify individual points, but everything remains glued together. Try drawing a circle, and you can try several of these. I'll try drawing a circle by clicking the center and then the radius. I can also draw a circle using one of these other techniques, if I can get the thing to show. Same with the rectangle. Try drawing a rectangle. So I have so far just shown you clicking on the buttons to access tools for drawing. Now I'll show you how you can just type in the commands for different types of objects. And this will actually save you a little bit of time and also a little bit of space on your screen, because once you learn these commands, you can actually hide the buttons and it saves you some time. So most commands, and this is from here on in how I will show you how to access commands, can be typed in. So if I want a line, for example, I just start typing in line, L, I, and you see how the cursor gives me a list of tools that begin with that spelling. And then you just click on the one that you want, line, and now you have a bunch of lines. Same with circle. Type in C, and you'll start to see the word circle. And you can keep typing. Of course, you have to know what the commands are. And in this case, you see how it has basically given me whatever tool was up on top. So I can specify the center and the radius. If I wanted to, I could type in circle and start the command. But see down here, there are these options. I could tell it, well, give me a 3-point circle. So then you click on one point, another point, and now the circle will be inscribed on those 3 points. If you want to activate the same command that you just did, again, just hit enter and see how it automatically brings up the last command. And again, it goes to the whatever was the command that is on top on your toolbar, but it will work either way. Rectangle is the same way. Just start typing in rectangle, and it will bring up the command. Okay, and spline, polyline, all of these commands will be. I have a list that I've posted on Canvas of the commands that I'd like you to learn, and of course, if you're a button person, you can absolutely keep clicking on the buttons. Some of them we won't be going into because they're not really necessary. For example, this one here is a cloud. Oh, that's so pretty. But we won't be using that one for our purposes this time around. So for this, I'm just going to select it and delete it. Now, when you want to make changes to objects that you've drawn, the most simple way that you can change those objects is using what are called grips. So right now I have no commands active. I usually hit the escape key, and you might hear me tapping, hitting that escape key. I'm trying to tap it as loud as possible to make noise on the recording, so that I don't have, I'm sure I don't have any commands active. Now, when I click on an object, what become active are these blue dots that I talked about earlier. Those are called grips. And by clicking on one of those grips, it now becomes a hot grip. And you can move parts of the object based on whatever grip that you happen to grab. Now, all these different objects have different purposes for their grips. This one in the circle grabs the center. And the line, that grip grabs the center of the line. But you see how it only moves that one line. This one here at the end grabs it by the very end, and I can move it and try and make it fit to that other line. And the spline, or polyline, I guess it is, will modify multiple lines at once because they're all connected. Okay, so using grips is a great way to edit things in a very simple manner. Now, let's say you want to do more than just edit grips. Maybe you want to make copies or move objects, but specific dimensions. I hit escape to deselect everything, and there are several commands that allow you to do simple editing, and the buttons are down here under the modify panel. Okay, so these are modification tools, but again, like I mentioned, I will be just typing in the commands from here on in. The first one, the simplest one, is M for move. Type in M and move pops up. Hit enter to select that command. Now you can select multiple objects. This is called building the selection set. I can select any objects I want by clicking on them. and hit enter to finish selecting. So I've built the selection set. And you see how they're highlighted. Now I'm just following the directions that the cursor is giving me. Notice that down at the bottom it is also giving you a hint about what you should do next. First, click once to give a base point, and now click on a second point to specify the displacement. The displacement is where you want these things to move. Okay, so once again, I typed in move. Now I'll just hit enter, and that brings up the same command. Click on an object and hit enter to complete the selection set. Then just give it a base point and then click again for a second point of displacement. Now, let's say I want to make copies. What would I type in? I'm guessing you're thinking copy, right? C-O-P-Y. Copy. Hit enter to select the highlighted one. Like before, you can select objects by clicking on them, but now I'll show you two other ways to select. Instead of clicking on the object, if I start clicking, or if I click once out to the right here, and drag my mouse over to the left, you see how as I move over these objects, they're not selected, not selected. Once it falls entirely within that box, now that line is selected. That's called a selection window. And all I have to do is click again to finish selecting that object. I can also, if I click off of all objects and go to the left instead of the right. This is a selection window. If I go this way, see how now the box is green and the line is dashed? That is what's called a crossing window. And now any object which touches the box is selected. You see how as I mouse over these objects, just touching them makes them selected. Okay? That's how another way that I can build a selection set, through the crossing window or the selection window. This is crossing, this is selection. Anyway, like before, hit enter to complete the selection, click once as a base point, and then click again to specify the point of displacement, and you can actually keep making copies. The copy command, it likes so much to make copies that it just keeps going until you click escape to finish the command. And you can see this is a little bit a little hairy in here. Well, the next command to learn is undo. You can just click the undo button or Command Z or Control Z on a PC and undo all that. And what it will do, it will undo the entire last command. Okay, so once again, copy, select the objects that you want to make copies of, hit enter to finish the selection set, specify a base point and a point of displacement, and you can make multiple copies if you are so inclined. Now, the last thing that I'm going to do is show you a way to make a cleaner drawing. There are two options here. One is if you have a bunch of lines and you want them to meet another line, there's a command called extend, E-X-T-E-N-D. And if you think about it, that is what you want to do. You want a line to extend itself until it meets something else. Now, the first thing, it's asking you to select objects. What you're selecting in the extend command is the object that is going to be the destination, the boundary of your selection set. I'm going to select this outer box here that I drew, or whatever it is, trapezoid. Hit enter to finish selecting the objects. Now it says select objects to extend. You can just click on an object, or you can actually cross over several objects to extend them in multiple all at once. So there you go. You can extend these objects to meet this box. Now, let's say you want to get rid of these little hairy bits off of the end. And I'll hit escape to finish trimming. Well, extending, now I can use a command called trim. And trim works the same way. You select the trimmer first, and you can select multiple lines and objects. So I could select this circle, for example. Hit enter, and then select the objects that you want to trim away, like these. Or you can even use a crossing window to select multiple objects at once, or click on individual pieces to get rid of those. So you see how there are a number of commands that can create fun and interesting patterns. So that's what you should try to do. Try to create a fun and interesting pattern using all these basic shapes included in the list of commands that I have posted to Canvas. So what are those commands that I said you need to learn? Well, here's the document here. Again, you can find this in the Files section of Canvas. And I've divided it up into a couple different areas of commands that I think are kind of the essentials. Each one of these, or most of these anyway, you can probably type in one letter or another. So for example, as we saw, type in C and it will start to fill out circle. So there are a number of drawing commands. These are for creating objects in the AutoCAD space. There are editing commands. And again, we tried move and copy. In the next video, we'll go on to some of the more advanced stuff, rotate and mirror among them. We will also talk about drawing modes. These are the buttons down at the bottom of the screen, the AutoCAD interface. Things like snap, grid, and ortho. We'll talk about those next time. View modification. This is zooming in and out. Again, I referenced using a scroll wheel. You can also type the word zoom, and that will bring up several commands, options for zooming in, zooming out, zooming to a window, and zooming extents, which kind of zooms all the way out. Panning, as I mentioned, is the little hand that kind of drags your view from left to right. And we'll talk about other stuff, things like moving objects to layers and that sort of thing. There are a number of tools. We just looked at the first one, grip editing. Oh, I guess we looked at undo. But there are a number of other ones on there that we will get to in later videos. Finally, there are a number of concepts. Again, I have not talked about each one of these, but I think that we hope sooner or later we'll get to most of these and explain how they work. For now, I just want you to give all the basic tools a try and kind of make your way across the basic draw toolbar. Try each one at least once. See if you can create an interesting pattern on your screen. Be sure to try using trim and extend and also move and copy to create some interesting richness in your view.